we are going to move on to the next subtopic here within this topic. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson right now, because one guy who did get paid a couple years ago, 230 fully guaranteed million, right? Um, hasn't been showing up.
Come on out, you rapist!
Wow. All right, Zach. Does Deshaun Watson get a pass for the Browns' embarrassing loss to the Cowboys?
Come on, bro. Of course he doesn't. Are you kidding me? The thing that really frustrates me about the Cleveland Browns, Lil, is I think for most quarterbacks, this is a really good situation. I think if you look at this Browns roster on paper, 2-53, it's one of the most talented and best rosters in the entire NFL. And that's even without Nick Chubb, who should be back in a couple weeks. But you mentioned the Browns defense and just how great of a hire Jim Schwartz was last year. You also have Amari Cooper at wide receiver, David Njoku, a very good tight end. The offensive line was a big concern for me going into the season, but historically under Kevin Stefanski, that unit has been very good. You have Kevin Stefanski, a guy that both of us ranked in our top 10 NFL head coaches list. But at the end of the day, man, Deshaun Watson is just not even close to good enough. The Cleveland Browns made a very risky move, deciding to move on from Baker Mayfield, a guy that, yeah, they took him with the number 1 overall pick, and it wasn't easy for him to start. He had his ups and downs his first few years in Cleveland, but Baker Mayfield could look back on his time in Cleveland and say, I won this franchise, their first playoff game in over 20 years against a division rival in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's something that Brown fans will never forget. You also think back, before the Browns drafted Baker Mayfield, if I remember correctly, this team had a 32-game stretch where they went 1-31. They won one game of 32, and that's what led them to drafting not only Myles Garrett, but Baker Mayfield as well. And my issue with the Deshaun Watson discourse is this guy has now been a Cleveland Brown for a few years now. It's his third year in Cleveland, and in those 3 years, he's only had one good half, not even a full good game. It was against the Baltimore Ravens. Cleveland ended up winning that game in overtime. But throughout this offseason, I had an issue with anyone referencing that game as a reason why we should be a little bit more optimistic on Deshaun Watson entering this season. And it's because even though that was one good half, we had like 13 or 14 other games where this guy was just nowhere close to his old Houston self. That's a long time ago now. The last time Deshaun Watson put together a really good season, I was back living in SUNY Cortland. I was still in college, and now both of us have been working for a couple of years now. So we can't use that as a reference point. The fact that it's funny too. We just spoke about Dak Prescott and the fact that if he were to hit free agency, that would be historic. We've never seen a quarterback at his age, with his resume and his stats, be a free agent at that point in his career, still in the middle of his prime. Well, the Deshaun Watson situation is kind of similar, right? We've never seen a 26-year-old quarterback that was just fresh off leading the NFL in passing yards be available for trade. We've never seen that before. And the reason for that is because you're not only getting Deshaun Watson in that deal, you're getting everything that went on off the field with Deshaun Watson. The Cleveland Browns know that. They really have no one to blame but themselves. And Will, my last thought on this, man, I don't know if you felt the same way, but when I watched Deshaun Watson in 2024 and when I watched him on Sunday, it just seemed to me that he didn't want to be out there. I don't think this guy wants to play football anymore, considering he's just gone through so much off the field. Now, most of it is his own doing, and he has no one to blame but himself. There are a lot more victims because of Deshaun Watson than Deshaun Watson himself right now. And I just think the Cleveland Browns are in a nightmare situation because as talented as this roster is, the quarterback position is such a joke. It will always hold them back until he's gone. And that will not be for a while when you look deeper and deeper into his salary cap situation. He's an uncuttable player. The Browns really have no choice but to keep him, considering how much dead money is on the books. And I'm not someone who overreacts to just one game in week one. We're going to get to our overreactions in a little bit. But the one team that I came away from Sunday thinking, man, this team should be in full-fledged panic mode, it is the Cleveland Browns. And it is because of their quarterback.
I mean, look, the way how I interpret this question is Deshaun Watson the main culprit to blame? Number one. And number two, should he be replaced? Now, to those two scenarios, I say no. So I think he gets a pass. Now I'm going to explain why. Now, look, he played terrible. And I said to the Browns ownership, you got. They did. They got. Okay. And we know that. They got stuck up. They have to live with that reality. They can get out of it, but it's not going to be easy to get out of it. We could explain that in the second lap, contract wise, terminologies and all that included. But I think for me, you look at the game, he already came into the game at a disadvantage. He missed both tackles, excuse me, left and right, coming off a shoulder surgery. Didn't play in the preseason because he had soreness, and he got sacked 6 times and he got hit 17 times. Okay. Now, the fact that he even stood up and continued playing in the game, deep into the game, despite the game being out of reach, despite him getting sacked, that was a testament to toughness because, like I said, the guy's coming off a major shoulder surgery, a surgery that alters his careers. We saw it with Cam. He was never the same guy after that, right? The same toughness he showed in the second half of that Baltimore game, where he completed 14 straight passes, playing with a messed up ankle and literally a shot shoulder that ended his season right after he won the game. So one thing we can do, we could say he's not good anymore, and you have all the evidence on your side there, and we could bring that up, and I would concur, right? I think Deshaun Watson is long gone, but we can't not question, or we cannot question his toughness. He showed his toughness, in this game and in the last time we saw him prior to this game. So and he was playing with a lot. Clearly his dad died or whatever. That was a thing, he talked about that. His dad died a couple days ago, and his former teammate. And yes, I understand you getting paid $230 million. We don't care about that. We want you to play football. Who the hell cares about Deshaun Watson's dad? I get it. But at the end of the day, he cares because that's his dad at the end of the day, and that could have affected him, right? So he probably shouldn't even have played in this game, okay? With all due respect. So we can't question his toughness. Now back to why I'm going to let him off the hook individually is because you have other components. If we're going to not give him a pass, we better not give Stefanski a pass because this team was outclassed. They was unprepared. I mean, the defense couldn't stop bootlegs and jet sweeps. Kavontae Turpin took a 60-yard return to the house. This is the new kickoff era. They don't even give you that much room, and they still scored. That's bad special teams. What happened to this? Oh, this defense is the greatest of all time. It sure didn't look like it. Dak Prescott was calling them up like butter. I can't believe it's not, but it's happening, and that's what happened. So because I'm going to put 50% blame or 25% blame on Stefanski and another 25 on a defensive coordinator, and then Deshaun Watson gets another 25%, I got to give him a pass individually. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a Deshaun Watson problem right now, because clearly we do.
So my issue with that logic, though, is you're the quarterback. You're the highest paid player on the team, one of the highest paid players in the league. And the reason why the Cleveland Browns traded for you was to go from a good team. They won a playoff game with Baker Mayfield, and they wanted to become a great team because they thought with elite quarterback play, this team had the chance to be special. And I still think, like, with great quarterback play, this team could be very, very good. And you made some good points about the offensive line. It's clearly not the same unit as it was a couple of years ago when they were probably the best offensive line in the league, but that should be expected when you're paying your quarterback that much money. The reason why you're paying your quarterback that much money is because you believe in not ideal circumstances, he could still get the job done for you. We know this is
the thing. The thing is, though, Zach, and I'm not really trying to make excuses, but it's just the reality, football 101. We see quarterbacks with terrible offensive lines, and generally they do not do good at all. Look at Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl without his missing lineman that was missing from that game. That was the worst game of his career. He got smoked. So at the end of the day, we can't just shun the fact that, okay, you don't have your lineman, but I don't think there's no but there. So you don't have your lineman, you're not going to play good.
If the Browns had better offensive line play, do you think they would have won?
Probably not, because the Cowboys look good. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Cowboys in particular, right? I think there should be a component to this question where we highlight how good the Cowboys look. We did in the first lap. So, yeah.
One other thing I'll respond to you about, like, I just have a hard time blaming Kevin Stefanski. Both of us agreed he's one of the best coaches in the league. And this is the same guy that when Deshaun Watson went down last year, he led his team to the playoffs with 5 different quarterbacks winning games. That's something we've never seen before. This guy had Joe Flacco looking like his peak Super Bowl MVP self. This guy was winning games with PJ Walker and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And I do believe, I don't think this is going to happen, but the Browns, if they really want to win, like Jameis Winston should be starting in week 2 against the Jaguars. It's not going to happen. They're paying Deshaun Watson way too much money. They're stuck with him. But I think with better quarterback play, this team would be much improved. But they don't really have a choice because of how much money's on the books.
I mean, we could look at that question from a long-term perspective. I see a lot of people saying the same thing. I'm not going to blame Stefanski because of exterior quarterbacks like Joe Flacco, Baker, Jacoby won games, right? And they're not winning games right now with Deshaun. And you can't even say they're not winning game. You went 4-1 with them last year. They lost week 1, So technically they're still winning games. It's just not looking good. However, if you look at week 1 and you're talking about this game in particular, what he did with Baker Mayfield doesn't matter. This team did not come off the bus. This team was not ready to win. Special teams busted. The defensive coverage is busted. You had, I think it was the first touchdown of the game. I forgot who scored the touchdown for the Cowboys, but the guy was wide open, got behind the defense. Night. It's over. You're toast. Okay? We got to call you Toast. That's your new nickname, guy. Okay? So at the end of the day, it's bigger issues than Deshaun. That game in week 1 in particular.
Is there, though, right now, what is the biggest concern for the Cleveland Browns? I think
right now, I agree. The biggest concern right now is Deshaun. But in week 1, that was a team embarrassment right there. A whole team embarrassment. We cannot let any other parties here off the hook.
I guess that's fair. And if my issue, though, is I do expect their defense to be at least better than they were on Sunday. They were definitely overrated throughout last year when they left their home stadium of Cleveland. I remember C.J. Stroud just gashing them in that playoff game, and their offensive line has a ton of question marks. It's definitely nowhere close to anything it once was a few years back when it was the premier unit in the league. But my issue with this, Lil, is I don't see this getting better anytime soon, whether the offensive line improves or not, whether the defense is better or not, because the quarterback position is such a zero. Like, this team is going to get Nick Chubb back. I'm sure the offensive line, the more time they get together, the more continuity they get, they're going to improve as well. But I don't really feel the same way about the quarterback. The injuries are now murky. We also know what happened to him off the field in terms of another lawsuit dropping. The NFL had to come out with an announcement yesterday saying that he's not going to go on the commissioner exempts list. Like, if I was just this Browns team, I would be so done with these antics. I would be so done with this whole situation. And it's just super unfortunate because, again, I think Kevin Stefanski is a heck of a coach. He's one of the premier offensive minds in this league. And he showed us last year that he could win with 99% of the quarterbacks in this league. You could give him most guys, but the guy he has under center right now, he's just not it. And I think it's going to be the detriment to this Browns team going forward.
Yeah, this is my last point. Obviously reading the comment here, I can't disagree with that. Like I said, that's a big situation. This is not Isaiah Thomas in the NBA who lost, I believe, his sister and dropped 40 in the playoff game. And mind you, the situations are different. Playoff game, week 1, NBA, NFL, whatever. But it's a team sport mainly in football than compared to the NBA, even though it is a team sport. But you affect the game more individually in the NBA than you do in the NFL. My last point would be, the last part here, I won't say give him time, right?
Like, dude, isn't this his 3rd year in Cleveland? Yeah. Haven't we been waiting for this guy to return to Houston form? Since he got to Cleveland, give him time. His time 4 years ago, this guy was the last time this guy played a really good football game. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in like 4 years.
I think
that wasn't because of him. That was because of their defense.
We are going to talk about Aaron Rodgers on this show coming up next. I think it's fair, and this is my correlation. It's fair to leave MVP Rodgers behind. The question is, do the Jets have enough to win? And can Aaron Rodgers just be an average quarterback, which we did see yesterday, right? An average quarterback. Can he be that? And can it just be better, right? MVP is gone. With Deshaun Watson, Houston is gone, clearly. And nobody can convince me otherwise. You can't even convince Deshaun Watson otherwise. However, can he just be better? Because the team should be better as the season prolongs. The offensive line should get healthier. The defense should be much better than it was against the Cowboys. can he just be average? And I would say to this question here, give him another week to get it going. Right now, if the Browns are 0-2 and he wets the bed, then it's fair to start, throwing those Jameis Winston, theories out there to the public. And when is the time, right? But as of right now, they're 0-1. There's a lot of teams 0-1 clearly. Let me see how he looks next week. Let's see if he can bounce back. And if he doesn't, there's no excuses. We do have a Deshaun Watson problem in such scenario.
I just can't feel confident with that because we've had a pretty large sample size now. It's been about 3 years since he's been in Cleveland. I know this season just started, but he's literally been below average in every single game. He's been the Browns quarterback besides that one Ravens game. And I know you bring up the record. Oh, they went 4-1 with him last year. We watched those games, man. He wasn't the reason they were winning. It was because of their defense and their coach. So I can't say I'm confident.
I mean, look, the last point here is that Deshaun Watson clearly has a lot going on right now. There was another, I think it was civil suit or something like that just popped up yesterday. So we have to, find out about that. But
come on out, you rapist!
Wow.
That's where I'm gonna leave it, Zach.
Before we move on, Will, I would like to know your thoughts. I was following the game. I was telling you off the air. I mentioned it on the show last week. I had who schedules a wedding on the first Sunday of the NFL season. I'm kidding. I had a great time celebrating my boy Zach. Congratulations to him. But what did you think of Tom Brady making his announcing debut? That was really the main storyline going into this game. A good game between the Cowboys and the Browns, but I don't think it was by any means the best game on the slate. I heard some reviews, but I'd like to know your thoughts. As the biggest Tom Brady fan I know, what were your initial reactions to him in the booth?
I mean, that's a good question. Now, I would just take you back to me sitting in my chair trying to make dinner at that time, the 4:00 hour. That's where, you're trying to chef up something on a Sunday to eat or whatever. And I'm going back and forth. I'm watching the game. I'm cooking. And you know me, I'm so locked into the game that it took me about a good 5 minutes to realize that Tom Brady was on. Now, granted, I'm a Tom Brady guy. I was looking forward to this, but my mind was just so caught up in football. It took me 5 minutes to realize, oh, shoot, I'm supposed to be listening for Tom Brady, and then I caught on and I started listening to him more as I'm watching the game and trying to do both. And obviously, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, arguably the greatest player of all time. But there's definitely a learning curve as far as just letting his personality out there a little bit more. I thought he was a bit nervous. It wasn't the greatest performance, but, it reminds me, and salute to my cousin Fred. I'm going to use this as an example, and this is going to prop him up way more, deservingly so. I remember when we did Can You Dig, and my cousin, who I know personally before any of this, we used to debate sports at the family barbecues. And I remember, I'm like, yo, cousin, you want a radio show? Let me give you a show because I know you know what you're talking about, right? And I'll never forget the first show he had, the energy wasn't there. Normally, he's the life of the party. He's the life of the barbecue. He's the energetic guy, like rah, rah. And he's like mad, calm. And I'm like, yo, cousin, I called my cousin after the show. Yo, where's that energy at, man? Like, I know you know what to do. I know who you are. You do it all the time. Amp that up. The following show, off to the races. Never look back. Great at what he's doing. So at the end of the day, it's the same thing with Tom Brady. I think as he gets more reps in the booth, we'll see Tom Brady, display not only the knowledge of the game, but personality and be one of the best broadcasters. I wouldn't cap his ceiling of being one of the best just yet, but it wasn't the best debut. I'll give him that.
Interesting. I think a lot of people are sharing a brain with you. And the one critique I had was I feel like every single person that was watching this game, I'm sure you thought this too, they were just thinking to themselves, like, how is Deshaun Watson this bad? He's pathetic. He's terrible. He can't do anything. And it really felt that Brady was kind of hesitant to criticize. And I feel like that's a big key to this job. I feel like if you're a commentator, you got to try your best to relate to the fans and really try whatever you can to show them that you're really paying attention to what's going on in the game and just give them your honest thoughts. Fox is paying Tom Brady to be himself. To be the guy that was the GOAT and winning Super Bowls with the Patriots. And it felt watching some of the highlights too is, he he was a little afraid to criticize. And I get it. That's not comfortable for everyone. You know, it's not easy to say something, but these, especially a guy in Deshaun Watson's case, he's making a lot of money. And the Cleveland Browns are paying him a lot more to be this bad. He shouldn't be this bad. So that was really my thing. I would love to see Tom Brady at least give us some perspective. Like, man, why didn't Deshaun Watson play in these preseason games? Oh, it's because the Cleveland Browns offensive line is so bad that they were probably worried, or he was worried, that he could re-injure his shoulder. Just analysis like that, you know, don't be afraid to criticize and just be yourself.
Yeah. I mean, look, you know, that's the thing here with the media people. And I thought about this the other day. I'm glad you brought it up. It's like, how do these professional athletes, right? Because you got a couple athletes that are former players that obviously get into broadcasting and get into radio, TV, or whatever. And you have two different ones. You have the ones that are scared to call out their teammates or former teammates, right? Because think about it like this. You play with these guys, you build relationships. If I go on the air and I call you out, I might get a text after the show is over like, yo, what's good, man? Like, why you call me out there? But then you have the guys that really embrace media and they call out guys that they know, and it may cause friction, but they doing their job. Like, how do you balance that, knowing that you're well respected amongst the league? I mean, players were scared to hit you because you're Tom Brady. As soon as they hit you, they picking you back up. You have a lot of equity and a lot of respect. How do you go about doing your job and kind of balancing that fine line of calling plays that need to be called out, raising questions, and giving answers? But yeah, salute to, you know, Jones. I definitely agree that Tom Brady could play for a lot of teams right now. A lot, you know, off the street. And I think there should be a slight door crack open that Tom Brady could potentially return to football. I mean, it has to be tempting. He's as close to the game as he's been since he retired.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.